One day in school, the teacher asked her students to do an assignment. She wanted them to write a story about their favorite family member, what they do for a living, and attach some kind of moral to it, sort of like a fable. So they all went home, thought about it, chose their family members, decided what they wanted to write about. Went to school the next day, and the teacher says, "Okay, I'm going to have each of you read your story aloud before the class. Who would like to go first?" Little Susie stands up and said, "I'll go first if that's okay." And the teacher says, "Okay, go ahead, Susie." Susie says, "My daddy is a chicken farmer. Why, just last month he put 12 eggs into the incubator, and 8 of them hatched into healthy chicks." And the teacher says, "Okay, so what's the moral?" And little Susie says, "The moral is that you don't count your chickens before they hatch." The teacher says, "Okay, good job, Susie, you get an A. Who would like to go next?" Well, Mary raises her hand. The teacher says, "Go ahead, Mary." She said, "My daddy also works with chickens, but he doesn't hatch the eggs, and instead he puts them in his truck and he takes them to town and sells them. So just last week, he filled up the whole back of his truck with these crates of eggs and didn't have his tailgate closed all the way, and he hit a bump in the road. The tailgate fell open and all the eggs fell out and splattered all over the road." The teacher says, "Okay, so what's the moral?" Mary says, "The moral is don't put all of your eggs in one basket." The teacher says, "Okay, it's a little bit overdone. I'll give you a B+. So the teacher's like, "Okay, who'd like to go next?" Well, little Johnny jumps up on the top of his desk. He's like, "Hey, pick me. Yo, back here, pick me." And the teacher's like, "Well, against my better judgment, I might as well get this out of the way. Go ahead, Johnny." Johnny says, "My Uncle Ted was a soldier in the Vietnam War. Now, he was flying around on a mission over there when his pilot was shot and killed by enemy ground fire. And he had to think quick. He had to grab whatever he could out of that helicopter and jump out of it before it hit the ground. So he grabbed a bottle of whiskey, a machete, and a machine gun. So he jumps out of that helicopter and he slammed that whole bottle of whiskey on the way before he even got to the ground. He raised up that machine gun when he found himself in the middle of 100 enemy troops. He opened fire until he ran out of bullets. He killed 50 enemy troops. Then he took out the machete and he hacked 20 of them to death. The rest of them he killed with his bare hands. And he's here to tell the story today." And the teacher says, "Good Lord, Johnny, what a gruesome story. What can the moral of something like that possibly be?" Little Johnny said, "Isn't it obvious, bitch? You don't fuck with Uncle Ted when he's been drinking."